So earlier I uploaded a video where I mentioned to you guys that I was having this conversation with a friend who's also a co-worker. That's why this conversation was able to have a head start. We were discussing things like our physical changes and how he doesn't look anything like he looked like before, whereas I have stayed pretty consistent. Well, he said one more thing, which was about how when the baby is born, what is the education path that he would like for his son to have, and things like that. And then he had to leave. And when he came back, I said, this is where I become, I guess, one of your favorite people to talk to because you have no idea what the conversation we had triggered in my noodle up here. And he was like, oh Lord, whatever it was, it can't be good. I'm scared, but I want to hear it. And I said, oh, you'll be glad that you heard it. And basically, as we were discussing how they are expecting and the medical appointments they have attended and stuff like that, the baby's heartbeat being super high. I'm like, how much was that? Like 150? And he was like, well, it was more like 140 at the time we listened in. But I'm like, damn, little dude, calm down. And then to that, I added, yeah, man, you won the race. What are you trying to prove here? I had this random thought about how grateful I am about the processes that take place automatically in the body. One of them that I have always been very vocal about when it comes to my circle of friends that I may share this stuff with, or particularly females who I may share this with because maybe they open the door for it or something like that, is of course the almighty period, which is, imagine if you actually had to mentally control your period. You know how when you need to go to the bathroom to take a piss or to take a dump, it's something that you have a little bit of control over, and you can control it based on what you drink, if you drink anything, or what you eat, if you eat anything. If you eat stuff, then that waste is going to be solid. And if you have a lot of fluids, then your body wants to get rid of it. And it's going to have to come out somehow. So you have to take a piss, whatever. But sometimes I think about how the period is something that I have absolutely zero control over. It is not consistent. I cannot choose the date. I cannot choose the rate in which I expel the waste matter. And then I said to myself, if women actually had control over that stupid process, I can just imagine having a conversation with someone where they go, well, you know what works for me? I mean, I have this really cool technique in which I just go like shake, and it just helps loosen the waste matter, and the uterine lining just detaches itself from whatever the fucking walls are inside of you. And I feel like I have an easier time letting it slide out. So just to imagine women sharing uterine lining shedding techniques. Or, there's going to be a clown out there who's going to try to develop some formula, some pill, some powder, something that claims that they can make that process even easier. And for me personally, I have joked in the past with some of my acquaintances that what I really wish this process entailed was something like, let me choose just one day, one specific day in which I feel sick to hell for like 20 hours straight. Like, don't let me sleep, just let me be awake and suffer. And let me take like this massive dump that takes care of it all. I don't care how thick it is. I don't care how big it is. I don't care how much it stretches me or how much fluid I lose. I'll just make sure that I have 2 gallons of water next to me to chug as I lubricate my insides in an effort to help this thing slide out more smoothly. But you know what I mean? I just wish that it took just one massive, miserable trip to the bathroom and be over with it. And a lot of people seemed to have agreed with me every time I would say that. And other people just said that they wish that it was like a continuous stream. Like, say, you start bleeding red and you can just control the stream as if it were urine, and you just drink and keep drinking water and keep drinking water and keep drinking water until your water just starts running clear. The waste starts running clear. And I never thought about it before. So anyway, imagine that automatic body process. But I had a deeper thought about it. If we did have to mentally think about this process of, say, shedding uterine lining, imagine if people were actually not good at this. Imagine that this were a skill, in the same manner that you have to have the skill to be able to sing in pitch, even though anyone who physically speaks, anyone who can talk, especially with clarity, and there's nothing wrong with like your vocal cords or anything like that, everybody has the potential to sing. Everybody can physically sing. You just need to be taught the proper technique to produce the sound and sustain it. Imagine if you had to be responsible for having the skill of shedding uterine lining, and then some people would be efficient about it, some people would not be too good with it, some people may be bad because they are legit too grossed out to deal with this, or maybe you're someone who is an overachiever at this, so maybe you consume too much time trying to be perfect with the cleansing of your insides, or whatever that may look like. And other times I also think, imagine if you happen to be a sloppy worker with that stuff, and then you have residue that you just missed, that you failed to consider. It stays behind, it rots, you go septic, you gotta go to the hospital, you fucking die. Just imagine the disaster if you actually had to control that process. That's one. Second, by extension, I said gestation, which is the most practical topic here. Imagine if you had to think about developing every single piece of your parasite. Imagine if you had to think about eyes and how to create them, how to develop them, hair, lips, nose, limbs, torso, circulatory system. Oh, that would be a field day. The circulatory system and the nervous system. Imagine if you had to be really delicate about, I have no fucking idea how a child is gestated, but let's say, don't turn up the acid in your body. Make sure that you're not too cold or too hot inside. Make sure that you have enough water. What does enough water sound like? I don't fucking know. I don't care. And make sure that you have enough folic acid. Make sure that you have enough, I don't know, calcium. All those things, whatever elements take place inside of you. Imagine if you actually had to be in charge of cooking all of that in the same manner that you cook a meal. Imagine that you're responsible for the cooking and baking of that parasite growing inside you. Just imagine the disaster if you happen to be someone who's very good at installing the nervous system inside your little creature, but you're horrible at putting together the wiring inside your body, inside your parasite's body. By extension, imagine the digestive system. How do you determine how bile forms inside of this creature? How do you determine how the intestines can fit in this baby and I guess continuously grow until, however freaking long the small intestine is? Stuff like that. You have to stuff these organs inside that parasite growing inside you. And then once that parasite is out here, as he grows or she grows, that is going to grow as well, is going to have to grow as well. Remember that your eyes are going to be the same size throughout your life. Make sure that you don't make them too big. Make sure that you're not a freaking triclops or a cyclops. Your spine, remember how delicate it is. Remember to place bones around it carefully so that it's protected, and your ribs serving as, I guess, the casket for your organs, and your skull being the helmet for your brain organs and shit like that. That would be a disaster, because imagine if you had to have the skill to develop a perfect human, perfect in the sense of you come out normal, then imagine if whoever you happen to be getting gestated by just isn't good at baking skin for you. And let me make it even worse. You know how people are anti wrinkling? And I'm surprised that we haven't seen a trend about this wrinkle right here and knee wrinkles. Imagine if someone gestated you to where you would be perfectly smooth everywhere. But you failed to realize that it is important that shit like this wrinkles so that you can actually be mobile. Because if this were smooth, stiff, and firm, you really wouldn't be able to comfortably move that joint. That's why it needs to wrinkle. It's important that it wrinkles because if it doesn't wrinkle, then it remains firm. It disables you essentially. So be proud of those wrinkles. Horrible sensation. What would it look like if you actually had to be skilled at gestating the eyes perfectly far apart, the ears, and the teeth? Make sure that they actually grow with the first set of teeth and then the second set of adult teeth. Make sure that they're growing this way and not you have teeth here, teeth growing out the neck or whatever the fuck mutation could happen. Imagine if you actually had to mentally think about how you're drawing your parasite, how you're designing that parasite. Don't forget about the nails. I think that the biggest issue people would have with baby baking would be forgetting things. Like, don't forget the hair, don't forget the lashes, don't forget the nails, don't forget the teeth, don't forget the little buds on top of the tongue. Don't forget about capillaries and blood vessels and the arteries and the aorta, little things like that. I think that the disaster would come from details like that. Or don't forget to make sure that this being has a little hole torn on their rectal area because they need to have an exit hole for waste, preferably two holes depending on what you're developing as, one for the liquid waste, one for the solid waste. Also the practicality of certain things, like there is existence of mucus in your nose. Your nose has hairs inside it. Don't forget those. Don't forgo mucus. And let me pick on mucus for a second so you can see how complex I got with this topic. So, you know how mucus serves as something that traps bacteria, viruses, or sediment, pollutants? You know how we are a very aesthetic society now. The person gestating you could choose to forego allowing you to create mucus, the capability of you to produce mucus. This person can decide it really sucks to sneeze and for the contents to spray everywhere. It's disgusting. And when you're sick, say with a cold or the flu, that shit may block your nostrils, you can't breathe. It would be very beneficial to not have mucus. But then this person may not realize the importance of mucus because they take it for granted. Mucus is like an unsung hero, and you think that because it's inconvenient in some cases and rather appalling to see or disgusting, that you would be doing your kid a favor by depriving them of their ability to produce this very important substance. That would be horrible. And the problem is that you know how people nowadays have really dumb, stupid ways about arguing for or against something? Well, this would not be any different. This would be like the issue of declawing cats. We know that those are cat fingers pretty much, but because people like them as pets, you will amputate the fingers off this creature because you don't want it to claw on your carpet or your bedding or whatever the hell your reasons might be. So with your parasite, you could choose to remove those functions from them. Some people may even design them to not allow them to defecate or to urinate and stuff like that. And you would think that you're helping them, but if that waste is not going anywhere by natural means, then what kind of solution do you have for that? Because it doesn't change the fact that you still have to eat, drink, and discard that waste material. So how is that gonna look like if you don't want for the body to do it the conventional way? I think it's nice that we don't have a say or a choice over that, because I'm telling you, I can just see that mess being a problem, people being taken to court, the deliberation. It would just be a disaster. And say it's just something that causes harm for your parasite, and you're just not acknowledging it as a problem. Or I also thought about this. What if you could actually gestate extra limbs? But there's two sides to that. The first side would be, let's say that for whatever reason you get in a car wreck and you lose a limb, and of course your limbs don't grow back. What if you could go up to your mother and be like, Mother, gestate for me another arm, right arm, from the elbow down. Okay, sweetie, give me 9 months. I can do that. And of course, the arm that I'm going to gestate is going to have a genetic material that's different from yours, but it may be still pretty close to similar. And let's say that I spit this out and it'll come out, of course, at baby age. Someone is going to have to develop some kind of microwave, bioengineer some kind of microwave to where you can throw this limb inside that microwave to age it to the proper age for this individual to have that limb reattached to them. That's the first part. And the second part is, imagine if people who are paranoid decided to deliberately gestate and install upon you extra limbs because you're paranoid about, well, if I break an arm, let me have another one right there so that it can supply and jump into action. Or people go blind pretty often, so I'm supposed to be born with two eyes, let me give you an extra one just to be extra safe. Or another ear, like if something happens to these, let me give you an ear on the back of your head just in case, for you to have backup or something. I think the one thing that I made a video about this years ago is, I think that nature dropped the ball on us not having ear lids. But I'm also glad that we don't have ear lid disorders to deal with. In the same manner that we can close our eyes, I wish that we could close our ears. At least there's like external things that you can plug into your ears, but sometimes I wish that mechanically I had something that I can deploy for when I don't have the earplugs with me. And on top of that, the whole extra limbs thing, it's, can you imagine someone coming up with something crazy like you're not paying attention while you're baking your parasite, and instead of your arms being, up here, someone decides to experiment and gestate the arms on another part of your body. Let's say that they're your legs instead. Or better yet, let's say that as opposed to being gestated with the spinal configuration that humans have, they instead give you a human body, because this is all you can produce. You can't produce fur or anything like that. But they decide to change your skeletal system to where it can be shaped kind of like a canine or maybe like a feline. And next thing you know, we have fucking humans out here running on all fours and climbing trees like leopards. This could go in any number of ways. And I'm just so glad that's not a freedom that we have, because again, it would be nothing but a disaster. Well, there you guys have it. That was my crazy conversation with my friend and coworker yesterday. Those are the kinds of topics that I may take and I may twist a little bit, and I share some of it with you guys, but I never go as deep with it here on the channel as I do in real life. But just know that if you ever wonder what conversing with me would be like, first of all, I'm a clown. Second of all, I have a pretty broad imagination. And third of all, you never know what to expect from me. Anything at all that you say, I can take from that cloth and keep producing and producing and producing and producing more material, more pieces to wear. Okay, that's it. Bye.